Hi everyone, my name is Payanna and welcome to my channel. So last week I found myself reading two books that were both retellings of Greek myths, which seems to be extremely popular right now. I have quite a lot of them lined up in my TBR. I even read Olympus. I started reading it for the Greek myth retelling and I stayed for the drama. But anyway, the first book I read is the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Now this novel has been recommended by everyone and their brother. All the biggest personalities of the book world have been screaming how brilliant and wonderful this book is. It won the Women's Prize in 2011 and it has gained an immense amount of popularity on social media in the past couple of years. So I was truly hoping for a book that was going to redefine my experience of literature. So this book is a retelling of the story of Achilles, obviously from the point of view of his partner Patroclus. So the story starts off with Patroclus, who is basically the biggest disappointment that a son could be to his father. His father wants a son that is big and strong and can compete and who can fight and who can kill dragons. Despite this, he finds a way of devising a machine capable of shooting down dragons, but when he finally gets what he wanted, confronted with the glorious eyes of the majestic beast, he cannot find it within himself to I got confused, didn't I? So Patroclus essentially causes another kid to die. He doesn't kill him directly, but the kid tries to bully him and then he knocks him over and the kid bangs his head and dies. And Patroclus' dad is like, "How dare you? I am banishing you from my kingdom." And later on it turns out that his dad is not banishing him because he is disappointed because he killed someone, but he's disappointed because he owned up to it. So he was honest about what happened, and therefore that's wrong. Honesty is what? He is sent to live with Achilles' dad and Achilles and a lot of other boys who have been kicked out of their families for whatever reason. In ancient Greece, presumably it's fashionable to just kick out the son you don't want and send them to Achilles' dad's kingdom because he's the cesspit for unwanted children. Kind of weird. But he is hoping to get an army of very loyal soldiers out of these kids, so yay, I guess. Oh yeah, Achilles also wasn't chosen to be Helen of Troy's husband, probably because he was a kid, but also his dad was kind of pissed off about that. But anyway, during his time with Achilles, Achilles is like, "Wow, you're a nice person. I want to be friends with you and be really close." And then they become blood brothers or something, and Patroclus gets to sleep in Achilles' bedroom and later on in his actual bed. What does Achilles see in Patroclus? Why is he so attracted to him? We never find out. Achilles is fucking perfect. He could have anyone he wanted, but he chooses Patroclus for no obvious reason, but okay. Achilles' mother, who's a minor deity, doesn't really approve of this match. She's like, "No, you can't. You're a demigod. You can't sleep with a mortal." To which Achilles responds, "Well, you clearly did, because I'm here." He never says that, but my god, I wish he did. Eventually, Achilles gets sent off to train with a centaur in the mountains, and this is the first actual really interesting bit that I thought happened in all of this book, because Patroclus learns surgery and medicine from the centaur, so I thought this was going to be something very important for later on. Just keep that in mind. Then Achilles goes back to his home and it's yay, the prodigal son is back. And then he gets sent off to an island because they're trying to recruit people for the Trojan War. Because Helen got kidnapped by Paris and everyone swore an oath that they would fight to retrieve her if anything happened to her. So, to war everyone goes. Patroclus goes off to find Achilles on this island, where he finds him disguised as a woman, and also having impregnated this poor girl who's convinced that he's now her husband, and Patroclus is like, yeah, he's not though, and Achilles is like, yeah, I'm not your husband, and this poor girl's like, but I'm gonna have a baby. Then Patroclus sleeps with her as well. For no fucking reason, he just does. And I thought this was gonna be a point of drama where, like, Achilles would be like, oh, you cheated on me with this girl, and Patroclus was like, well, you started it, I'm just returning the favour. And then the girl's baby is retrieved by Achilles' mother, so this girl not, like, loses her husband, her lover, and her baby all at the same time. Because Greek mythology is all about laughter and smiles. But anyway, they do finally end up in the War of Troy, which goes on and on and on forever. During the war, like, obviously there's a bunch of slave women, and Patroclus is like, we should buy them so that they don't end up as sex slaves for the other soldiers. And Achilles is like, okay, and so they end up with all these women, and I guess they kind of rehabilitate them in some way. I don't know, like, Patroclus does actually get to work as a surgeon in the camp because he can't fight, and Achilles is kind of tired of protecting him when he does go out onto the battlefield, because, like, he can't fight. Achilles has to fight for Achilles and also Patroclus, and, like, he's pretty cool about this, like, I have to admit. But yeah, him being in the medical centre is probably for the best. And also for him, because, like, he gets to know all the soldiers and the gossip and everything. It's great, I guess. Yeah, they both die at the end. I think you can probably tell I didn't really enjoy this book. Like, this was actually a struggle to read. I had to force myself to finish it. So why does everyone think this is so amazing? I don't know. I didn't think it particularly brought anything new to the story of Achilles. Like, we don't even get his point of view or his perspective on what's going on. Even Patroclus' point of view isn't that interesting. Like, Patroclus is a really boring character, and Achilles is like, wow, he's so amazing, but he is incredibly bland. Like, he does have a few lines of dialogue where he's like, I'm amazing and everyone should do what I say, and everyone's like, okay. I didn't get it, basically. Madeline Miller's writing is really good though. She has these, like, very short, specific sentences. Like, everything is very precise and to the point, which I found very pleasing. But the actual storytelling though is just boring. Like, nothing much happens, even when the war is going on. Like, okay, I get that it's supposed to, like, be dragged out for 11 years, so, like, at the end it does really feel like, yeah, this is getting to be a bit long. I didn't care about any of these characters. I didn't care about Patroclus. I didn't care about Achilles. I didn't even think that their romance was particularly interesting. Like, I read better stories. I hated A Deal with the Elf King, but the romance is better than this. It's even difficult to say that she did her research well, because a lot of this book is like, let's see how many Greek kings we can get into one page and turn it into some kind of drinking game. It is a lot of, like, just name dropping. That's what it felt like. Like, there's a bunch of characters that are all in the Greek myth, and let's just cram them in here, and for no obvious reason. Even the boys at the beginning, like, what happened to them? Like, all the boys that were at Achilles' court, like, where did they go? The one, I guess, new thing that we do get out of this is Patroclus wanting Achilles to be remembered as a human being and not as a war hero and everything that entails. Which was like, we get right at the end of the novel. He was a man. He was the man I loved. He was the boy I knew when I was a kid, the boy I grew up with. But again, like, there's no real kind of sense of feelings and emotions. It's basically a shit ton of show don't tell. Even the hot scenes are boring. It's like, Do you like what I'm doing? Yeah, I like what you're doing. Do you like what I'm doing? Yeah, I like what you're doing. And it goes on and on and on. I really don't get it. The other really big missed opportunity in this novel is that Patroclus has abandonment syndrome, which is obvious because he was kicked out by his own father. So somebody who is abandoned or kicked out by one of their parents feels like nobody could love them, because if their own parent can't love them, then who else could possibly love them? And it gives them a sense of worthlessness, that there's no point in making friends because they're just going to be abandoned and they're unworthy of it. Patroclus experiences this, so he is kind of a bit wary of being around Achilles at the beginning. He's kind of like, he's probably just going to abandon me, and eventually he's like, oh yeah, he's not going to abandon me. And there's no kind of evolution, like there's no emotional journey or anything that he goes through. It's just like, oh, I have abandonment syndrome and I'm afraid Achilles is going to leave me, and then, oh yeah, he's not going to leave me. And like, there's no progress, nothing happens, there's no healing process in the middle of that. And as someone who suffers from abandonment syndrome, I find that really frustrating. If you want a really, really, really good example of what abandonment syndrome and suicidal depression looks like, I strongly recommend The Ancient Magus Bride by Kore Yamazaki. This is a manga, and it's, I think 15 or 16 books long at this point. It is getting to be quite long. And it tells the story of a 16-year-old girl called Shise who was abandoned by her mother, and she starts off the manga like being at the lowest point possible. She believes she is completely worthless, she has dehumanized herself, she is no longer worthy of life, of anything, and she goes off basically just wanting to have some kind of random purpose by selling herself in an auction, and she is bought by the Magus, and from that point on, everything clicks into place for her to heal from her suicidal depression, from her abandonment syndrome, and it's very progressive. I mean, it starts off with her just being incredibly bland and just going along with everything, to her rebuilding her confidence, meeting new people, discovering new things, making friends, that she is worthy and deserving of love, and she can make connections with people, and she can find pleasure in life. It's a beautiful story. I might make a video about that at some point in the future. It's brilliant. But yeah, this wasn't, at least not in my opinion. I really don't understand why everybody loves it so much. Yeah, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, a massive, massive disappointment. The second book I read is Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis. Now, I'd never heard of this book until I randomly came across it in a thrift store. I was like, wow, there's a C.S. Lewis book that I didn't even know existed. C.S. Lewis is the man who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, by the way, in case you didn't know that, and also a bunch of Christian apologetics and the Screwtape Letters, which is super fun. And apparently a retelling of the story of Psyche and Cupid. So C.S. Lewis's version is told from the point of view of one of Psyche's sisters, Aurel. So Psyche had two sisters. So the book starts with Aurel giving an account of what it was like growing up in her father's court, her father being incredibly misogynistic. He hated women, he hated the fact that he only had daughters, and he was incredibly cruel to his daughters, and how she made a life in this, and how she developed her own thought process and independent way of viewing everything. And then her father remarries and Psyche is born, only Psyche's mother dies giving birth to her, so she has no mother, and Aurel is obsessed with her new sister, so she provides the motherly care for her, and Psyche grows to be an incredibly beautiful young lady who starts actually being worshipped by the local villagers. So she is considered a living deity because she is so kind, because she is so beautiful. This ends up making Aphrodite's jealous, which trickles down to the knowledge of the clergy, who, following an immense crop failings, droughts, plagues, everything, decide to sacrifice her to appease the goddess. So that's what they do. Aurel is obviously completely devastated by this and decides after the fact to go up the mountain where Psyche was sacrificed and bury her and pay homage to her sacrifice. But when she gets there, she finds that her sister's body is nowhere to be found. Until she actually spots her sister on the other side of a river, and her sister's like, come over and see me, look, I'm fine, it's great, I'm married to a god now. And Psyche's like, you're insane, because she's a really nice sister. She tries to convince Psyche to come back to the kingdom and seek medical help. Psyche's like, no, I'm married now, I have to stay here and look at this beautiful palace and all this beautiful world, it's all mine now. Aurel's like, yeah, you're insane, you're really insane. Because again, nice sister. She can't see the palace or any of the beautiful things that Psyche is describing. She is, however, rather concerned by the fact that Psyche has never actually seen the face of her husband. And she's like, no, you should get a lamp and totally go and look at him while he's asleep. And Psyche's like, oh, really? Really? That's what we're doing. But she does it anyway, for the love of her sister. And gets striked. The gods get really mad, basically. Sends her forth into the world on a bunch of trials. So if you've read the Greek myth, you'll know about the trials of Psyche. But the god, so Cupid, comes to Aurel and tells her that she will herself go through the same trials as Psyche. And she's like, what? How? Aurel goes on to become queen of the kingdom. She learns how to fight. She's super good at fighting, to the extent that she whacks the king of the neighboring kingdom in a duel. She also decides to wear a cloth over her face because, unlike her sister, she's super ugly. And she's like, you know what? This is better. Adds an air of mystery. She becomes the elite amongst queendom, a warrior intent on protecting her people and also fighting against the gods for stealing her sister from her. All the way through this novel, she sees Psyche as being her property and the gods having stolen her from her. I love the scene of her going up the mountain to retrieve her sister's remains because she really has this romanticized idea of her laying her sister's bones or remains or whatever to rest in this heroic kind of way, a sort of maternal sisterly love. I'm the one who's going to pay this respect, and she has this whole narrative going on in her head. But when she finds Psyche alive, all of that just completely falls apart, and she, to some extent, blames Psyche for it. She gets completely kind of mad that she sort of broke her fantasy of laying her bones to rest in this beautiful way, and she starts to gaslight her. She's very much acting like Psyche is only a beautiful thing that she can own, and the fact that she is still alive doesn't really, like, obviously she's happy to see her alive, but having destroyed her kind of romantic idea of setting her to rest, it's as if her being alive doesn't really make a difference to her. It just shattered her ideal. And this sort of dual personality that she has, like, she is on one hand extremely brave, extremely bright, she's incredibly intelligent, very knowledgeable, she goes on to lead her queendom in the best way possible, but still has this dark side to her, like she can own her own sister. And this carries on all the way through the novel until Psyche finally completes her trials, and Aurel does get a chance to explain herself in front of the gods and explain herself in front of Psyche. This book is brilliant. This book is so brilliant. I loved Aurel's character. She has this kind of dark, romanticized personality, and it comes across as being very raw, very real. She is an incredibly realistic character, and I was honestly extremely surprised. I absolutely wasn't expecting this when I started reading this book, And in this novel, we do get a completely different perspective on Psyche's story from her older sister. And this is what I expect. This is what I hope to find when I'm reading a Greek myth retelling or a fairy tale retelling or anything. Any of these stories that I grew up with. If you are going to retell them, give us a new perspective. Give us an element, something, a different point of view. A different motive, something that we hadn't seen or picked up on before. This is exactly what C.S. Lewis did, and he wrote this book directly after reading Psyche and Cupid's story from Metamorphoses by Ovid, which I don't have a copy of. So he read that, and straight after this he was like, I'm going to tell this story from Aurel's perspective. And it's so good. And I honestly don't understand why this book isn't better known than it is. Like, why had I never heard of it? And even after looking it up, I found that this is actually pretty common, even amongst C.S. Lewis fans. Like, I'm going to be honest, I'm not the biggest reader of C.S. Lewis. I've read the Chronicles of Narnia, I've read the Screwtape Letters, and now I've read this, but that's it. I haven't read any other of his work. So I was very confused. It is so beautifully written. The prose might be a bit challenging, like if you're maybe not used to reading this great. It is very different from Madeline Miller's writing. Like, as I said, her writing, short, precise, concise sentences. This has a lot of pretty advanced language in it. It was also written at a time when writing wasn't the same as it is today. Like, I know this is more of a modern classic, like C.S. Lewis is more of a modern writer. We're not talking about like Victorian romantic novels or classic novels where they would just go on and on and on for pages and pages about countrysides and birds and and here's the main character walking down the road, and we get a very long description of what he's wearing and how many inches there are between his horse's strides. But I honestly recommend this way over the Song of Achilles. I was shocked and flabbergasted by how good this was. I couldn't put it down. I'm completely obsessed. Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis. So that's it from me for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, learnt something. I'm ranting quite a bit lately about books. It's been a year for like books that I don't really understand or like. Yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Don't hesitate to leave a comment. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.